Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Hello, welcome to my goddesses. I see a lot of goddesses out there joining us tonight. I'm really excited about our guest this evening. She is a returning popular guest, Melissa Deely. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses TV, otherwise GGTV. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too, because I have a story first to tell about one of the things we're going to be talking about, which is supplements. So when I was 3 or 4, I will never forget my mom opening up something in a jar and giving us each a different color. And I looked at it and it was Fred Flintstone. And I didn't want the blue one or the green one. I wanted the pink one because I think that may have been Wilma. Anyway, I ate the Flintstone candy. My mom said, "This is candy." That's how she told us about the vitamins. And it was really good. And she said, "You're going to have one a day. That's it." Well, I didn't want to have just one a day. So later on, when everyone was sleeping, I must have been 4. I went downstairs, pushed a chair up against the counter, went up, took that bottle of candy. And I don't think they were child-proof back then. I mean, I grew up in the 70s because I opened it right away, or maybe it was left open, dumped a bunch in my hand and ate them. And all I remember the next day was a stomach ache and being in the bathroom all day. So after that, I had a phobia of vitamins. I just never wanted to take vitamins again. And I know you can all imagine, except when I was pregnant, I took prenatal vitamins. But honestly, I just never, maybe it was that, but I just thought, why am I taking a vitamin? I know with being pregnant, it definitely was for the baby, but I did notice my hair and my nails were amazing. And I'm 55 and I'm, feeling some kinks and different things going on in my body changing and hormones. I know that it's really important to take supplements. So I would like to ask the group, which I have here on the live studio audience, if you feel comfortable, raise your hand if you do not take vitamins. Okay, so we have a handful here, and raise your hand if you do. Okay, the others do, and so do you. Okay, so that's interesting. So there, out of our little group here, more don't than do. All right, so tell us, how do you feel about that?
So we are in a time in our world where we need to be supplementing. It would be wonderful if we could get everything that our bodies need through our food systems. But the reality is because of depleted soil systems from years and years of industrial agriculture, just pulling from the soil, and the soil never having the chance to regenerate the nutrients. If the nutrients aren't in the soil, they don't get grown into the food, and then we don't get to eat them. And so as a result, even in the first world, we are deficient in many key vitamins and minerals. And in some cases, to the extent where I would say some people are actually malnourished. But that has more to do with digestive issues on top of the lack of nutrients. So if we want to have good energy, have good movement, vitality, and be in optimal health, we truly do need to be supplementing in today's day and age because we're just not getting it through our food. And there are some that we're particularly deficient in that when I'm working with clients that I recommend that they take these ones for life, and I can share those with you. And there's also, what's the difference between a good vitamin, a good quality vitamin, I should say, and a poor quality vitamin, right? Because we all hear, oh, well, you just urinate it out and it's a waste of money and it's like peeing money down the toilet. And that can be true. And it's like with many things that you get what you pay for. So if you're buying a cheap supplement at a Costco or a Walgreens or a Walmart or wherever you're getting it, chances are there's not really enough of each ingredient in that product for your body to do something with. But the manufacturer has put in enough for the health authority, whatever country you're in, to allow that to be on the label. So they just put enough in for that, but that doesn't mean there's enough for your body to do something with. And then the rest is full of fillers. And we know that our pharmaceutical industry really does prioritize shareholder profit over human health. And they also own many of the supplement companies. And so again, it's all about, how do I make the supplement more cheaply in order for me to make more profit? And that's when we start to get fillers, not enough of each ingredient, or the cheapest form of that ingredient, which it may be a form that the body can't absorb well. When we look at the functional medicine side and we look at the higher quality supplements, that's when you can trust in brands that are going to give you enough of the ingredient so that your body can actually do something with it, as well as the most bioavailable form, meaning your body can absorb it. So I'll share with you, if you like, the 4 supplements that I recommend everyone take, but I do want to give that with a caveat.
Before we go there, Elliot had his hand raised. So I think he has a question about what you just talked about.
Sure.
We can unmute him. Let's see.
So good to see you, Melissa. You always look healthy and happy and whatever. Anyway, I just want to make a note of something about, you were talking in the beginning about the earth and we don't give it whatever. It's interesting that in the Bible, God gave us all these different natural things around us that sometimes we don't make use of. In the Jewish world, from the Bible point of view, God made us give the earth 7 years. The 7th year, it must rest. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that. The Sabbath for the human being, the earth for the earth. And there are certain things out there that I used to take vitamins all the time. Home Shopping Network, I used to avoid, whatever. But I don't take them anymore. And that's been for years. And I'm a little bit older now. And my wife creates in the morning, every morning, a drink with the most unbelievable quality of a thing called ginger, mm-hmm. and kale and spinach. And I won't go on and on and on of
the rainbow, basically. Mm-hmm. That's why I wore my colorful top, because it's important.
I knew that. And as far as the 55, backwards it's 55, so you're stuck. Anyway, the bottom line is that I used to take vitamins, and I don't understand why people don't go to the world to find the natural ginger or kale or whatever it might be to make them, to take 15 minutes out of the day to prepare something for giving their body a treat,
right,
and making them healthy.
Because we live in a busy world, right? And people are usually looking for that quick solution. How many people are eating fast food because they're in the rush, right? How many people don't actually cook at home and buy something, and they might be buying at Trader Joe's and saying, well, I eat healthy because I buy at Trader Joe's, but they're still not necessarily, going back to that plant-based, making things from scratch. And I absolutely agree with you. God gave us everything in the earth. And for thousands of years, we had plant-based medicine. And then in the last century is when all of a sudden plant-based medicine wasn't good anymore. And it's all about pharmaceutical. But that's just because of marketing, right? They had a bigger marketing budget than the farmers and everybody else producing the plant-based medicine, right? So for people that are willing to do that, that's awesome. And kudos to you and your wife for doing that, and you're healthy and you like how you feel, et cetera, et cetera. You still may be deficient in some areas. And that's why I want to share the most common deficiencies for people, because depending what's in that drink, you may not be getting these. And I run lab tests for people all the time that look at our mineral levels. And when we are under stress, we burn through our minerals and we use them up. And then if we're not replenishing them, now the body is in this depleted state. And it's the same with our vitamins, particularly our B vitamins. We burn through in stress. And then we can be in this depleted state. And we have to put these back into our body. And how are we doing that? So what I do want to say is the caveat is that I don't know any of your health histories, and I am not a doctor. I'm an integrative health practitioner. I don't diagnose and I don't cure. So I can make recommendations for your education. And then if you're on other medications, I would want you to check with your pharmacist, because they're the one that actually has the knowledge on, the vitamins plus the pharmaceutical drugs, to tell you if there's any contraindication before you just do what I suggest here. Having said that, many pharmaceutical medications actually leave you depleted in other key minerals and vitamins. And so it's very rare that a pharmacist would tell you not to take something and you can actually benefit from it. But you do need to do that check-in. So magnesium is one that over 70% of North Americans are deficient in, because it's not in our soil to the degree that it used to be. And magnesium is a really powerful, it's one of our electrolytes. It's a powerful mineral that our body needs. It's used in over 300 chemical reactions in the body, particularly for calming the body. And so again, in our stressed out world, our body needs help to calm. And magnesium is something that kids can take as well. Now, if kids don't want to take a capsule, another great way to get magnesium is through putting Epsom bath salts in their bath. And this applies for kids and adults. The magnesium in the Epsom bath salts are absorbed really well by the skin. And it's a great way to calm the kids before bed and help them get a better night's sleep. And the same for adults as well. So that can be helping calm the body to pull us away from going down that path of anxiety as well. And there's a lot of people struggling with anxiety. So that's one that so many people are deficient in.
I have a question about the Epsom salt baths. Because I was told you have to put a lot in. Is that right?
So it depends. If you've got a standard bathtub, then a cup is enough. If you've got the big kind of jacuzzi tub, etc., then you might want to be putting in 2 cups.
And then how long really?
20 minutes.
20. Okay. Because I was told it wasn't long enough. You take a quick bath and out. No, you got to soak in it. And then it actually will enter into your body.
Yeah. It'll be absorbed through our skin and enter into our bloodstream, etc. And I mean, I personally love to read in the bath. So I'm never just in the bath for 20 minutes. My baths are like an hour long, and don't ever tell my library that I take their books in the bath all the time. So far, I've never dropped one.
As long as it's not your phone, right? And then
exactly.
So basically magnesium you're saying is very good for stress and
very good for helping with stress and helping calm the body. And so people that are kind of going down that path of adrenal burnout, that happens a lot. That's, one of the supplements that I will use with them, in addition to some more specific adaptogenic herbs as well, to support that body and calming and coming back. But for the general public, magnesium is excellent, and you can't overdose on it. And I'll tell you why. And maybe there was some magnesium in that bottle that you ate, Karen, because you get to a state of bowel tolerance. And what that means is when your body's had enough, you're going to have a loose stool. And then I got a loose stool from my magnesium. I've had enough. And that's kind of how you measure the dose that your body needs. So you might start off, and there's different types of magnesium. I recommend a magnesium glycinate or a magnesium citrate, a magnesium malate. Sometimes you can get a magnesium that have multiples of these in them. If anybody wants any help with that, I certainly work with a couple of brands that I know really well. You can email me and I can give you specific recommendations to brands that I know and trust. So those 3 types of magnesium are really good. A magnesium oxide is what you'll often find, though. That's the cheaper version. And it's not great unless you're struggling with constipation. The body doesn't absorb it well, but it will really help resolve constipation. So in that situation, it's good. But it's often what you find in multivitamins is the oxide version. But even with the citrate, the malate, the glycinate, if you have enough, it will cause a loose stool. So the way you test the amount that your body needs is you'll start with 1. And again, because it's so good at calming, it's great to have it before bed, right? You could do it before bed and in the morning as well. But start with 1 capsule
It's not going to
And then-
make you sleep. It's not like you take it in the morning and you feel drowsy. It's just
No, it just calms though, right? So it does help with sleep and the calming at night. So you start with 1, and then the next day you can have 2. The next day you could try 3. The next day you could try 4. And at some point, because you're deficient initially, you might need quite a bit, right?
Mhm.
And at some point you're going to have a loose stool. And then you're going to be like, okay, my body has enough. And then you can drop it back. And then that's the level that your body needs right now. And then after a few weeks at that level, maybe your body's now starting to build up some reserves and you're not as deficient. Maybe you're going to have another loose stool and you know that you can cut it back again. And you start working your way back down. So I take 2 magnesium every single night. I do baths, probably 3. It's cold here in Whistler, 3-4 times a week at this time of year when I'm putting my Epsom salts in as well. And yeah, really powerful supplement for helping the body calm. So the next one that I recommend just about everyone take is vitamin D. So if you live in the northern part of the US, there you go, northern part of the US and all of Canada. If you are not supplementing, you are deficient because there are not enough hours of sunlight getting onto your naked skin for enough days of the year just because of our climate, right?
I wanted to interject there too. And
Mhm.
I apologize if
No problem.
but I have comments about each one, and I'm sure
Yeah.
our viewers do as well. 10 years ago, when I had my cancer diagnosis, my vitamin D was extremely low.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that that's what caused the cancer, but it certainly didn't help.
Correct.
And they told me that I had to take at least 2,000 a day.
Yes. And
Okay.
So vitamin D is excellent for the immune system, for respiratory health, for brain health, bone health, teeth health. And I live in Canada. I have winter just about 6 months of a year here in Whistler. And I supplement, generally it's about 5,000 IU. I do the drops. So 5 drops every day. And you want to take it with a good quality fat for better absorption. So I will have it with, if I've made my smoothie and I've put a little bit of coconut oil in my smoothie and there's some left on the spoon, I'll just lick the spoon to get the fat in my mouth while I give myself the vitamin D. And I literally stand in front of the mirror and I count the drops. I know some people just like take half a dropper. That could be too much. So I count the drops, or I might have it with a little bit of avocado.
I should be taking 2 of these.
If there's 1,000 per capsule, then you should be taking at least 2 if you're
No,
doctor.
there's 2,000 per.
Yeah. So in winter,
Yeah.
honestly, I would say so there's different varying degrees of what's considered a good vitamin D level, right? In my work, I'm looking for optimal human health. And so I'm looking for your vitamin D score to be between a 50 and an 80. And you can all get your vitamin D tested by your PCP. I can also run a lab for you if you wanted to. But I want to see it between 50 and 80. Mainstream medicine is happy anytime it's over 25 because so many people are even lower than that. And the reality is like sufficient is kind of 35 to 50. What we know today, in fact, we knew this in October of 2020, is that with this current pandemic, that vitamin D was actually hugely significant in keeping people out of hospital and out of ICU. And if your score was like 27 or higher, so you would start to see that decrease. Once you got to 35, even if you got COVID, you weren't going to hospital because that vitamin D was protecting you. And it brought the stats down significantly to the point where somebody with good vitamin D levels, and I'm saying sufficient, so 35 or higher, only had a 2% chance of going to ICU. But with people that didn't have sufficient levels of vitamin D, I think it was like 42% ended up in ICU and 8% actually died. And that went to 2% in ICU and nobody dying when the vitamin D levels were sufficient. So it's really a powerful vitamin that we take for granted thinking we get it from the sunshine. And we do, except that if we're covered up, we're not getting it on our bare skin. And that's what we need. It's not enough to have it on our clothing. And through this pandemic, what have we been told to do? Stay home. And we've been on Zoom. So even if you live in the Sun Belt, people can be deficient in vitamin D.
There's light therapy though, no?
There is light therapy, and that's different to the tanning salons. Tanning salons, I'm not a believer in.
No, it's like a special, like happy light type of thing.
Yes. But I don't know the research on how that lifts vitamin D levels, but I do know that it exists. I just don't know the stats on that.
We had a question from Estella and Elliot after her. So we'll unmute you.
Okay.
Estella, hi, welcome.
Hi, and thank you for this wonderful presentation.
Sure.
I have lost a lot of weight, about 25 pounds in 6 months. But I wanted to ask, no, but I didn't want it to, because it's a reaction of not eating well, not having my vitamins and stress. And you just spoke about stress. And I've been diagnosed with anxiety and stress, extremely stressed. But what about fish oil? I say that I don't take vitamins, and I forgot about that. I have a fish oil.
Yep.
And I take
probably
one
next
spoon.
on your list. Yeah.
I take 1 spoon every morning.
Yeah. So fish oil and omega-3s are the very next supplement I'm going to talk about. So before I move on to that, if Elliot had a question about vitamin D, I'll answer that. And then I will talk about fish oils.
Elliot can unmute.
Yeah, I noticed that, when I shop at Trader Joe, I go past the vitamin section because I like to look at it. I don't take it. But there's vitamin D and D1 and D2 and D3. What's the deal with the D1s, the D2s, the D3s, et cetera, et cetera? And one quick note, as far as the Epsom salts, that goes back to my great-great-grandmother. If you were sick or had a bad back, you take Epsom salts and put a cup in the bath. It's going on from generations, but it's a great deal. But the vitamin D1, D2, 3, I would love to know about.
So I love that your grandmother did that. And that goes back to my point earlier that for thousands of years, we've had, plant-based medicine and understood how all of these vitamins and supplements worked. And then it kind of all got squashed. And now we're relearning it or re-bringing it to the public, right? And what we want the most bioavailable is vitamin D3. That's what we want to be getting. And like I said, taking it with fat. And if it comes with a vitamin K, that also helps with absorption as well. So sometimes you'll get the vitamin D3 and it has a little bit of vitamin K.
What's the difference, I guess, what Elliot was saying, like D1, D2, D3? Is it just?
You know what? I don't fully understand the difference in them. And even in our labs, it tests for vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. But really what we're looking at for our health of our immune system and respiratory system, bones, teeth, brain, et cetera, is the vitamin D3 that matters. Okay. We don't even look at the vitamin D2 score. And it's interesting because sometimes people are taking vitamin D2 and that score is really high. And then their vitamin D3 is really low. And I'll have them switch that up.
So if I see vitamin D on the shelf and vitamin D3, I take vitamin D3.
Yes.
And
I recommend the drops because I just find the drops really easy and I find it more affordable because that jar, I don't know how much that jar costs you, Karen, but it probably has 60 capsules in it. And
is that Karen, is that D or D3, Karen?
It's D3. It has 120. They're teeny tiny though.
Right, they are. And so if you're taking 4 a day, say, that lasts you a month. So then compare that to the price of buying the liquid, which might be, a little 10 ml jar. Yeah, they are. I've seen them like that. I do take that for traveling because it's easier than traveling with a liquid, but I just find it's more affordable and the little bottles with the drops last way longer if I'm just putting 5 drops on my tongue every day.
Can you put the drops in the drink?
I put them in my husband's drink because that's the only way I can get him to take them.
I bet you could put it in you could probably put it in your coffee too if you have like some
little bit of fat in it.
How many? 5 drops?
So like your wife, I make him a health drink in the morning and I just put things in and he doesn't know what's in there. But he's noticed how it's helped him. Particularly, he notices it in the wintertime when he has to shovel snow and that he used to shovel snow and then have a hard time catching his breath. And he's asthmatic. So he would really struggle to the point where I was always worried about him passing out. Right. And now that doesn't happen anymore. So he acknowledges that whatever I put in his concoction that he drinks every morning must be doing something for his health. And he just doesn't know what's in there.
What I mentioned before, my levels being so low, probably whatever was going on in my body, my body wasn't able to fight.
Exactly.
Right.
And there is a correlation between breast cancer and vitamin D. And I know that. And I have another health coach that I work with that doesn't run labs, but she will often send people to me to have labs run because she wants to know where their thyroid is at, if they've got candida in their gut. And she also wants to know vitamin D levels.
Okay.
Because of that.
Moving on to omega.
Yeah.
This is the one I take. There's also Omega Bright. I was told this omega does not cause the fish burps because sometimes you burp up and that, and it doesn't. It's great.
Yeah.
But which one do you recommend?
So, well, I recommend the Equilife Omega.
Right.
And the reason for that is, again, when I run lab tests for people, we can run a lab that will show your levels between omega-3 and omega-6. And that's really important because that will indicate the level of inflammation in your body. And you may know that inflammation left unchecked, chronic inflammation in the body can trigger our genes to turn on disease. And we know that from epigenetics, right? So we used to think that whatever your genes had, that was the disease or the health outcomes you'd have. So if your mom had breast cancer, if your sister had breast cancer, you were going to get breast cancer. Well, no, that's not actually true. It means you have genes that predispose you to that, but that's only 5 to 10% of the equation. The 90 to 95% of the equation is the environment you create inside your body and the lifestyle that triggers that. So that environment is impacted by your level of toxicity, your level of inflammation, right? So when we are highly inflamed, that's kind of the signal to our cells to turn on disease. So we don't want to be in that state, but unfortunately, too many of us are today for a myriad of reasons, one of which is our imbalance between omega-3 and omega-6s. Omegas, we need both, and the body doesn't make either, which is why they're called essential fatty acids. Omega-6s are the inflammatory, and omega-3s are the anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s are readily available in almost all the food we eat, and omega-3s are readily available in wild fatty fish and some plant-based products. But if it's a plant-based omega-3, the body has to do an extra level of conversion, so it takes more effort, and it means we get less out of it, so you have to eat more. So if people are not eating wild fatty fish like anchovies, sardines, wild salmon, mackerel, oysters, mussels, catfish, rockfish, Pacific halibut, Arctic char 4 times a week, chances are you are deficient, meaning you're out of balance between your omega-3s and the amount of omega-6s you get in your diet. If we go back to our hunter-gatherer days and what they got in their diet back then, the ratio was 3 omega-6s to 1 omega-3. The average American diet today, the ratio is 18 to 1. 6 times more, which is causing this inflammation in our body, which is triggering disease, right?
Right.
So ideally, in the work that I do with my clients, I try to bring people back to being below 5 to 1. If you're from Japan, if you're from Greenland, because they have such a high fish diet, they're already there. The Mediterranean diet has you pretty close. But
so you can basically have sushi 4 times a week without the rice.
I was just going to say, without the rice, and you're still making sure it's the fatty fishes too, right?
Yes.
So the North American diet still has us at 18 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So when I run the labs, not only do I find out what levels you're at, but it shows me, do you need more EPA or more DHA to bring your body into balance? And so that's where I recommend the Equilife products, because I'm choosing the right one for the body based on that personalized lab test. Oh, look at you.
Well, this is your
that's your detox. That's the Equilife brand, right?
I thought we'd talk after about that too. Okay.
So,
but I know Rochelle was listing the brands. There's lots of different brands. I don't have all Equilife brands. I have the detox and I do have the magnesium, but I just was showing the ones that I use. Right. But if you have any, you recommend Equilife brands.
I do, because I know that they're created by a naturopathic doctor who's also trained in orthomolecular medicine, which is the science of therapeutic level vitamin health, as well as in Ayurvedic medicine, as well as in Chinese traditional medicine, right? So he's pulling a lot of knowledge into creating these products in order to be the most bioavailable and most efficient for your body to use.
And people can go directly to the your web.
I can share my link in the chat.
Yeah.
And I am an affiliate, so they do give me a kickback for purchases. But people can check it out. The science is all on the website.
Yeah.
And then you're getting a trusted brand. If you want to go and buy it elsewhere, or you already have a trusted brand, that's totally fine too. It's just important to know that we need to be focusing on our omega-3s and lowering our inflammation levels in our body. And when we balance our omega-3 to omega-6s, the beautiful thing is, and it says it right on my lab results, this reduces your risk of sudden death by cardiovascular disease by 90%, 90. And there isn't a pharmaceutical drug out there that can say that. And cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in North America. So if we could just get everybody to focus on balancing the inflammation in their body, focusing on omega-3s and omega-6s, we could bring the risk of heart disease down significantly. But unfortunately, our doctors, when they're in medical school, aren't taught this information.
Lauren asked a great question. Is there an omega-3 that that does not contain gelatin? So I guess that would be like a vegan type omega-3.
So I would be looking at liquids, Lauren. And yes, there are vegan options. And I have had some clients use them. I will let you know that the vegan one, we had a hard time finding it. They're less available. Didn't love the flavor, but the way everyone's taste buds are different. But she takes it because she said, I know I need it. And she just chooses to take it.
All right. So the question is, the problem with gelatin for me is I keep kosher. So some of the gelatin is animal based and some of it is not animal based. So if I knew which gelatin it was, then I could make an informed decision. Right. So that's part of the, stress. Like I saw that the vitamin D is fine. There's nothing in from Equifast that has anything, but I will keep looking.
I don't think.
Did you look at the EquiLife already? And
the magnesium, the omega-3 has gelatin as the first other ingredient.
But you don't know whether it's animal or not.
Right, because it doesn't.
Okay, well, I can certainly ask the question and find out for you.
That would be great.
Absolutely. And if not, then I can share with you the other vegan one that my client found, because I have that link. Let me just write that down.
We also had a request to list all those fatty fishes again. So maybe we'll do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
After I'll jot it down for like the parking lot to get to after.
No problem.
List again.
I'm just going to drop in link to purchase via EquiLife. I'm just dropping this in the chat for you, which is the link to the whole EquiLife store.
Thank you.
If anybody wants that. So that's omega-3s. And Estella, you have your hand up, or is that from last time?
She is muted. Let's unmute her. Go ahead, Estella. We still can't hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is what I take. This is not the brand that I usually take, but there is not the one that I used to take. It was a little bit more light and refined, I will say. And this one is not high quality, I will say, because you feel that it's too thick. So what do you suggest? What brand do you suggest to purchase the fish oil?
So the link that I just put in the chat, you can click on that link and you can type in omega-3s, and they have both a liquid and a capsule, and you can look at both of them and see if you like either of those, whether you prefer the liquid or the capsule.
Has to be.
And I also liked Omega Bright, or this one, Ultimate.
Yep.
But is that liquid? No, I don't take pills at all.
So there is liquid, yes. There is a liquid option you can look at. And The reason I like the Equilife ones is because they are higher in EPA than DHA. And I don't know what yours is, Karen, but very often they're not. They're higher in DHA. But what we see in our labs is most people need more EPA.
No, these are higher in these are
EPA?
EPA 650 and
Awesome.
DHA 450.
Right.
Okay, so after omega-3, thank you, Estella, for that question. We're moving on. What is the next one?
Vitamin C. So vitamin C is something we all know boosts our immune system, and maybe we just take it for granted. And a lot of people think it's the little orange vitamin C's that are candy, right, Karen? And you want to eat the whole bottle.
Yeah.
And okay, I don't suggest
or
those
orange juice, but that's all sugar. That's all sugar.
All sugar. So I'd be very careful with the orange juice. And again, coming back to that, our first discussion about depleted soils, there's been some research done showing that. And the one that I always remember is that if you were to eat one orange back in the 1940s and you want the same nutrient dose now from that one orange, you would have to eat nine oranges in one sitting. So that's the depletion over those years, over like 80 years, right? And if you do drink the juice, we're getting the juice out of the orange, but we're not getting the fiber. And so, yes, it's natural sugar, but it's fructose and our liver still has to process that. And so it's still not something we want to be doing all the time. And the little orange vitamin C's that taste like candy, they're also loaded with sugar. And that's not what I'm suggesting. Vitamin C in the form of ascorbic acid is what we really want to be taking. And this is not only excellent for our immune system, as everyone knows, but it's a powerful antioxidant. It is an antipyretic, which means it lowers your fever naturally. It's an antihistamine. So if you're having an allergic reaction, it can be an incredibly powerful tool to take to fend off against that reaction. I've used that with my own kids. It's antibacterial, it's antiviral. And so it's excellent to be having on an ongoing basis year round for all of those benefits. But it's water soluble, unlike the vitamin D, which means our body burns through it very quickly. So if you take a whole lot first thing in the morning, your body will urinate out what it doesn't need because it doesn't need it all at once. So it's something that you need to take several times through the day, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, or at least breakfast and dinner, because whatever you take in the morning, the body's either used up or urinated out by dinner time.
Or you can eat something with vitamin C in it.
Yep.
Like that. I mean, like you said, oranges are not as good as they were.
Right.
But there's other foods that have
having vitamin C through the day.
Yeah.
So vitamin C is also like magnesium in that you get to bowel tolerance in terms of depending what your right dose is. So that means you're going to have a loose stool once your body's had just that little bit too much. And then, okay, I've had enough, I can back off. So just some examples of how I've used it. Back in late December, I started feeling like I was getting strep throat, and it just came out of nowhere on a Friday morning. And I'd had strep throat like 20 years ago. So I knew what that swallowing shards of glass was like. And I was like, uh-oh. So I took 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C right off the bat, 4 capsules to give my body a boost. And then I had a little container by my desk, and I literally took 1,000 more every half hour for the rest of the day until I got to like 20,000, right? And I didn't have a loose stool. And the next morning I still had a sore throat. So I did it again. And the next day, sore throat was gone. I was fine. And I never actually got to bowel tolerance. So clearly my body was using everything I was putting in to fight that. And then I never got strep throat, which I later found out had been going around town. So I was just intrigued because I didn't know where I'd suddenly got it from. And I've done the same with my daughter, who is allergic to cats and dogs. She lives with cats, but other people's cats and dogs. And one time she was asked to babysit, and she went to their house only to find out they had a dog, and she hadn't asked. And she came home and she could barely breathe. And she was asking to go to the clinic. But we're in a small town and the clinic closes at 10 p.m. And then it's a big rigmarole to get the doctor to come in and blah, blah, blah. So I said, let's just do vitamin C first. So I mega dosed her. I did like 4,000 right away. And then I started giving her another 4,000 every half hour for 2 hours because I needed to get her breathing. And in 2 hours, she was breathing again, where I knew that she could sleep through the night. We didn't need to go to the clinic, and that was fine. And that was the antihistamine effect kicking in, right? And then she was fine the next day. She did have loose stool, so I had overdone it, but I wanted to get her breathing, right? And then she was all grumpy about the loose stool. But interestingly, a couple of weeks later, when her sister was coming down with something and I was trying to high dose her vitamin C, Nicole starts going, take it. It works. It works. Take it.
Well, that's like
So,
the emergency.
yeah,
packets.
exactly.
Or the
And
air
vitamin
bomb.
C is
air
not
bomb.
expensive, right?
Right.
And the other really cool thing about vitamin C is the molecular structure of vitamin C is really similar to the molecular structure of sugar. And we have in our body both cancer cells and cancer killer cells at all times. And I don't know about you, but I want my cancer killer cells to win that fight. And what's interesting is we have 15 times the sugar receptors in our cancer cells. But because the molecular structure of vitamin C is so similar to sugar, the cancer cells draw the vitamin C to it, thinking it's sugar. And the vitamin C will kill the cancer cells, but it doesn't hurt our healthy cells. And so it's a really good anti-cancer benefit as well.
Okay.
So I love vitamin C.
Vitamin C. So before we move on to the next, Elliot has a question regarding vitamin C.
Two questions really. Melissa, what do you take actually, the actual vitamin C you take, and your daughter, whatever?
The brand that I take, is that what you mean?
Yes.
So I take one by Pure Encapsulations because I'm in Canada, and sometimes buying from Equilife and paying duty and taxes in US dollars and exchange gets really expensive. So I found my favorite brands in Canada. Pure Encapsulation is also in the US. I use their ascorbic acid brand.
The other question I have is my two grandchildren.
Mhm.
One is allergic to dogs,
Mhm.
and the other one is allergic to horses. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. But the dogs is a big problem from the reaction, as you know.
Mhm.
And you're telling me, so I understand it, that the vitamin C, pumping it 4,000 will what? Will calm it down?
Yeah, it's an antihistamine. So probably what happens when they have an allergic reaction, they're getting some kind of chemical drug like reactin or something, right? And instead of that, you can use vitamin C, which is natural and it doesn't have the chemicals in it. Now, I don't know how old your grandson is.
11.
And so everything's based on a 150-pound adult. So any guesses as to what he weighs?
Sort of that.
100 pounds, 75 pounds?
A 10-year-old, I don't know,
Maybe 75 pounds. So say half an adult, right?
Okay.
So maybe start with 2,000. So the brand that I use, the Pure Encapsulations, and many brands, it's a 1,000 milligram capsule, right? So you start with 2. And then in half an hour, you could give another one. And then in half an hour, another one. And until it starts to calm down. And literally, if you want to give more, you can, because it's just going to result in a little bit of loose stool.
Yeah, and the other question is, when you take that capsule, the more water you take with it, the quicker it dissolves, or that's just crazy?
You know what? I would say no, because the more water we take, the more we're actually weakening our digestive enzyme power. So yes, you need to drink it with water, but I wouldn't want you flushing, because then you are going to flush out before it's absorbed.
Great.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. I have some in front of me that I think I'm like waiting for you to say, and I'm going to hold up. But what's your next one?
Those were the 4 that I tell all my clients, right? And that I feel pretty comfortable with the general population being able to use all of those 4. And then once we go beyond that, it starts to get more specific for people's needs as to what their mineral levels are or their vitamin levels, etc. You know, a B complex is excellent. Is that what that is?
Yes.
There you go. I guessed it.
So they have a place here in Chicago that actually does, it's called IV Me Wellness, and they do like injections of
B12. Yeah.
It's quite expensive, and it's just kind of it's not worth it to do that. So just to take the B12.
So B12, and then I was saying B complex too, which can have B12 in it. And I'll talk about both separately. So the B complex is excellent because, as I said at the very beginning, under high stress, we are burning through our B vitamins, and we need those B vitamins in our body. And if we know we've been stressed, then we know we've used them up. And so replenishing our B vitamins is a good thing. So, and the B will include your B2, your B3, your B5, B6, your B12, everything, but everything in a little bit lower doses, right? B12, you might also need to be taking. And again, you can test your B12 levels through your PCP. They don't necessarily test all your Bs. I can do that, but your PCP will test B12. And B12 is really important for several reasons. If you are eating a vegetarian, a vegan-based diet, it's harder to get your B12s because it tends to come through red meats, right? But also, here's a really interesting fact. These symptoms or signs of Alzheimer's and dementia are not clinically any different to a B12 deficiency.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the argument on the holistic side of health is if we just gave all of our seniors B12, perhaps we wouldn't have the near epidemic rates of Alzheimer's and dementia that we have in the world today. And those symptoms show up and doctors diagnose Alzheimer's and dementia. They're not lab testing for their B12 levels and promoting that you need more B12.
Right. So
But-
start the B12 early.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. My dad, I remember taking B12 when I was young, and he's 91, knock wood, and he's pretty with it. So
There you go.
who knew?
Exactly.
What about, were you finished talking about Bs?
Yep.
I wasn't sure. Okay. What about the probiotic?
Okay. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go back to Bs because I'm going to just zone in on niacinamide for 1 second, which is vitamin B3. And then I'll talk about probiotics.
That's where I had a reaction. I was trying to remember. I thought it was magnesium. I had a niacin flat.
Yes, niacin flush. Very, very common. So it comes at B3 comes in two forms, niacin and niacinamide. With niacin, it is much more likely to cause the flush. Niacinamide is less likely to cause the flush, which is why most people use that version. And then it just takes a little bit higher dose as a result.
The flush, by the way, was just this
The redness. Yes, very common.
Yes.
So niacin and niacinamide are very helpful for a number of things, including supporting kids with ADHD and ADD, anxiety, as well as helping people who have cravings for alcohol or any kind of craving. When our niacin or niacinamide levels are at a sufficient level, those cravings will go away. It's very good for supporting cholesterol. And so people that have higher cholesterol levels, one way to support it is to increase their niacin or niacinamide. Another way is also for cholesterol specifically is something called red rice yeast.
Okay. But if you get a niacin flush, I'm sorry, you may have said this and I missed it. What kind of niacin then could I take?
You want to use niacinamide.
Imide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Niacinimide. Niacinamide. So that's also of the Bs, besides the B12, the B3 is one that I'll often use with clients when I know there's specific health issues that are going on, because it can really help with some very specific things. We want our B6 levels to be good because our B6 levels are actually the starting point of all of our hormones functioning properly, right? So all of these things are important and we want to know that our levels are sufficient.
So it sounds like you're suggesting a B rather than a B12.
Yeah, so a B complex,
Yes.
definitely. And then if you're someone that isn't eating red meat, then you probably also need the
That's
B12.
me.
Yes.
That's me. I'm not eating a lot of red meat.
And I supplemented with, and you want what you have, the methylcobalamin.
Yep.
You want that version. Yep. And then also in any of the Bs, you want to make sure you're getting the methylated version, because many, many people have what's called the MTHFR gene. That means your body can't process B vitamins unless it's the methylated version, right? So even if it's folic acid, for instance, you actually want to be having the folate or the methylated version than just folic acid, which is folic acid is very common as a prenatal. And I love how you said that you took them then because you did it for your baby. And so often we'll do things for our babies and not ourselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I realized that, like tonight I went for a walk with the dog and I was like, when was the last time I took vitamins? And now I will say, I just went out and got all these supplements just the other day, just because I knew you were coming on, and I'm like, I got to practice what I'm preaching here, and I'm starting it up again, and that's why I have all of these in front of me. I just have 2 left. I have the probiotic, and then I just have a daily, like for women over 55. So I was curious about these.
Yep. So a daily multivitamin is excellent. Again, it just comes down to the quality and the brand, and are you getting you can look at things like, is the magnesium in it? What type of magnesium is in it? What type of folic acid is in it to kind of judge the quality, right?
Right.
And also another way to judge the quality is take it on an empty stomach. And this was something that I learned and had a big aha about, because I'd gone to the local health food store and I'd asked for a good quality vitamin for women over 40. This was years ago, before I was even in health and wellness. And they sold me something and I thought I was getting a really good multivitamin. And I would take that every day at home, no problem. And then I was traveling and I would take it in my hotel room because I didn't want to take my supplements down to the table in the hotel restaurant with my colleagues and then we're going out for the day, right? Well, what I noticed every day when I was on this trip is my stomach would be absolutely nauseous by the time I got to the lobby level and was walking to the restaurant, from having that vitamin on an empty stomach. And it wasn't until I got into health and wellness and my health coaching that I learned that that's the fillers in the product and my stomach not being happy with them. And when you have a good quality product, it's literally food, and your stomach should not be turning as a result of taking that product. And so now all the products I take, it doesn't matter. I can take them on an empty stomach and I'm fine. And so that's also a clue as to the quality of a product. That's
a good test. This one I've been taking the past couple of days, and I've taken either with food or without, and I've been fine. And by the way, I purchased all of these at like a compound pharmacy here, an organic.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Just at
I'm not familiar with the brands because they're probably not in Canada, but from a compound pharmacy, that's going to be a way better quality product. So that's awesome.
The pharmacy. Okay.
So what to a multivitamin.
Okay.
And then that's a great starting point for people. And then if people do want to run labs, then we can start to zone in on what additional things you might need to pinpoint. But in this day and age, we need a multi.
And then the probiotic, that's just kind of individualized, right? I was told it was suggested by the pharmacist to add this to my diet because of my, digestive issues.
Right. And so, yes, it is very individualized, and there's many different types of probiotics, and you're looking, is it 25 billion CFU? Is it 50 billion? And you want to be making sure that you're also getting one that can actually survive through the digestive tract, there's not a probiotic out there where 100% will survive through the digestive tract. So that's why there's 50 billion in them, right? But if half of that 50 billion survives, then it's getting in and helping you. And there's different types of probiotics as well that are, for different reasons. So there's more intense ones that you want to be taking when you're taking an antibiotic. And you definitely want to use a probiotic anytime you're given an antibiotic, because one dose, not just one course, one dose of an antibiotic can wipe out the balance in your gut flora. But if you take it with an antibiotic, although not at the same time, because then they just cancel each other out, you need to have 2 to 3 hours apart, you can be starting to put back in good flora to maintain the health of your gut through that course of antibiotics. And then there's different antibiotics. I know there's some that are specifically for supporting kids with autism, for instance. We know that kids on the autism spectrum, their gut flora has 25% less variety than someone who's not on the spectrum. And so we're trying to expand and build the variety in their gut. So there's specific probiotics for them. And then there's probiotics that you can just take daily for good health for your gut, to support your gut. There's probiotics that I might be recommending to someone who's got bacterial overgrowth as we're trying to heal their gut. Now, the one time you don't want to be taking probiotics is if you suspect that you have candida overgrowth, because then you're just feeding it.
You're feeding it. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Before we because I did want to talk about the detox before we end today, because I've done it twice and I love it. Are there any questions at all about supplements? Elliot, here you go. Let's unmute you.
Just wanted to know about the B12 you were mentioning. How much of the B12 should be taken?
That one, it's going to really depend. And for all of these, actually, it's going to depend on the B12 that you get. And I would follow the directions on the label, because you can buy them in different amounts. Like some of them might be.
This is 5,000. And I was told to take one, Elliot, put it under my tongue. But Melissa, the pharmacist said throughout the day, if I'm feeling tired or I can just take another one. It's not like a cup of coffee, but it's definitely
a little bit of a boost.
You'd be proud of me. I'm just drinking decaf now. You'd be so proud. No more coffee in the morning, honestly. But he said this would be great. Just a little lift.
Right.
And when they make these vitamins, I'm not knowledgeable to that, but what do they do? They have a laboratory and where does it come from? Where does that vitamin C or B12 come from?
That's going to be another GGTV, I think, right, Melissa?
And I'm not even sure I'm the best person to answer that, other than to say, yes, there's a lab and the ingredients are sourced from all over the world, honestly. And it's going to depend on the brand. And then I know for Canada, they're coming into Canada and they're getting the quality of the ingredient is getting tested on the way into the lab. And then they combine it all and then it's getting tested even before it goes back out to the market. But yes, with all of these, particularly the B vitamins, I would be looking at what the bottle says as well as what your weight is. So what the bottle says is generally based on a 150-pound adult. So if you're more than that, then you can increase that dose. If you're less than that, you want to be decreasing that dose. And that's just for daily maintenance, etc. The doses I was giving you with vitamin C, I was telling you because that was more that therapeutic level and because I know you can't overdose on it, right? You're just going to get loose stool.
So I had met Melissa, I believe, on Azula here at Pulver Studios and talked with her, had a meeting with her via Zoom, and then decided to try this detox. And then I interviewed her because I loved this and I loved just all of your knowledge. You are just, every time I speak to you, every time you talk, I learned something new. I took notes tonight because a lot of times I'm just sitting here listening and interacting and I don't get all the notes. So I can't wait to add a bunch of these to my repertoire. But I did want to tell you all about this detox, have Melissa tell you rather. She can provide a lot of info, but I like the support that she gives. So this isn't just a detox that you go and buy and you drink this shake and that shake and then like you just see how you do. Like she is there like on call almost to answer your questions. And I mentioned this in the last GGTV when we talked a lot more about detoxing. I went to a restaurant once. I'm not saying that you're going to do this with everyone, but she did do this with me. I was so nervous. I took a picture of the menu and I'm like, I don't know what to eat tonight. And she texts me back right away saying, well, try this, this, and this. So that was just awesome. The support you provide people through this guided health journey is really like holding our hands and taking us through the health, this journey of health, which is really what we all need. Sometimes we just need that support. And on Grateful Goddesses, we're so glad that you joined us. We're approaching our last minute, but what would you like to say about this detox if people are interested?
Well, thank you. And yes, that's what I love to do is hold people's hand and guide them through, because when I do that, people can be successful and get the results that they want. And how easy it is for us to give up on ourselves and listen to our brain going, why are you doing this? This is hard. This is different. And pull us back into our comfort zone. But when we know we've got that support, we know we can get our questions answered, we can just talk back to our brain and go, hey, I've got this. Just bear with me because I'm taking us both to a new place of health. What I love about this detox is it's designed to fit into your everyday life. I'm not going to say it's easy, but I make it as easy as possible by setting you up for success, teaching you how the program works, helping you choose your start date, and providing recipes and meal
recipes,
plans. Yeah. So that you can do this. And, nobody's going to sign up for a 7-day water fast. I mean, that doesn't sound fun to anyone, right? And if you're trying to do a 7-day water fast, by the end of day 2, you're not able to function in your everyday life, and you literally have to take time off work. But through this 21-day program, we're getting in those fasting days while nourishing the body with really good quality shakes that are a multivitamin with a detox formula, letting your body detox, but we're doing it over the course of 3 weeks. So 2 days per week are your fasting days.
And when you say fasting, because when I first heard that, I thought, wait, what do you mean? But you have like how many shakes? I forget.
4
now.
shakes. Four shakes in a day.
You're having 4 shakes on those 2 days and nothing else. Just water or tea.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or a decaf black coffee, I guess.
No, we don't do any coffee.
Nothing. No coffee at all. Okay. Well, I wasn't drinking coffee then. So, and then the other days you're having a shake in the morning and then a lunch and a dinner and
an afternoon shake as well.
Afternoon shake.
So we're nourishing the body with those shakes. So you're not going to starve. You might have lower energy because you do have a little bit less caloric intake, but with support, you can absolutely get through it. And the benefits of it are so profound. I mean, I've never had someone get to the end of it and say, I wish I didn't do that, for starters, because they're all too busy celebrating the wins that they've had and how much better they're feeling, whatever that is for each individual. But as I said earlier in this session, that your health outcomes are driven by 5 to 10% are your genetics and 90 to 95% are the environment you create inside your body. So when you support your body in detoxing, because your liver and kidneys are so bogged down by our 144,000 man-made chemicals, they can't do their job properly. So when you help them do their job and support it, you are now creating a very clean environment. You're lowering inflammation and your cells do not turn on those genes. In other words, you are creating a body that is inhospitable to disease. And I truly believe that if we could get the entire Western world detoxing as a lifestyle, that we wouldn't have the chronic illness that we have today. Because in Ayurvedic medicine, they still detox to this day. Latin American medicine, in cultures, Asian cultures, they all still detox to this day. And look at where the chronic illness is. It's in the Western world, because we've only been taught that we need to take a shower for good health and good hygiene, and we wash our outer body. The reality is we have to wash our inner body too. And so a functional medicine detox that supports the liver and kidneys in doing their job is how we can do that. And it is very powerful.
And I will say too, if you choose to do this detox, you might say to yourself, oh, I can't, I have a birthday party next week. Oh, I can't, I have something. Let me tell you, I had a wine tasting that I went to that I filled a wine glass with water, put a little lime on the top, and I just sat through the whole wine tasting event with my husband drinking that. And I had birthdays, I had different events, but
you had an anniversary. You had a big anniversary.
I had my anniversary. So that night I talked with you before that. What am I going to have? And you said I could have a little bite of dessert because we were celebrating. Like it's just, right. I think you said something on a spoon, just enough to fit the spoon. And I said, well, how big of a spoon?
So I had said that you want to take no more than 3 bites of dessert, and that they need to be bites that you would be okay eating on public television. So not the kind of bite where like you're shoving it in your mouth. So dainty bites.
When that peppermint ice cream came, I was like, which spoon am I going to use? This little baby spoon? But it was so worth it, because I do this now, like you do it 4 times a year, but I've done it now twice. And it's challenging, but after like the second round, it's so much easier. Like when I did the 2 days of shakes, I was like, wow, this is easy. Mm-hmm. So I guess your body, it's like muscle memory. It kind of remembers.
It does. What's happening is your metabolic flexibility is increasing, and that's what we want for good health. So what I find is, generally by the 3rd time someone does their detox, they're writing to me and going, wow, that was just really easy. I can do this all the time. And that's when I will start people on a once a week daily fast if they would like. And that's what I do. And my body loves it. In fact, I don't even notice any kind of loss of energy anymore, because
no food at all, just water.
Yep, just well, and the shakes.
The
So
shake.
once a week, I do the 4 shakes all day long, but there is no loss of energy anymore because my body's so used to this, right? And what I'm doing every week then is helping get rid of toxins, dead cells, damaged cells, and just giving my whole body a break. And it's fabulous in terms of detoxing, but it's also, now we know, it's putting our body into that state of autophagy is really good for longevity as well.
Well, if our viewers here tonight would like to contact you, you're going to write your contact in the chat, but can we say it out loud so people who are viewing us on Facebook and LinkedIn can?
Sure. And they may be able to read it behind me, but my website's yourguidedhealthjourney.com. And my email address is simply melissa@yourguidedhealthjourney.com. Or there is a contact form on my website that you can click and send me a message. And I'm happy to share with you about detoxing or supplements, however you would like to be supported. And I also want to let you know, I've just recently started a membership program. And so this program is for people that, want to be part of a health community, proactive in your health, and have access to all of my content. And I do weekly calls on Wednesdays at noon Pacific so that you can come and show up and get your health questions answered. Because sometimes, you just have a question and maybe it isn't even a question for a doctor, or maybe the doctor isn't even going to know the answer to the question if it's more lifestyle related, because that's not their training. So that is $19.99 a month. You get a free trial month. So you got nothing to lose by stepping in and giving it a try. And people usually spend more on their coffee in a week than what I'm pricing that out for my founders in a month. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. I can send you more information.
Thank you so much. Everyone's commenting here, very informative. That's why you're returning. I mean, you are just the goddess of health, and we appreciate you joining us again. And thank you so much. And everyone, let's raise our mugs of to good health.
Tea. I've got my ginger tea here.
Or your ginger tea, your water. We got the omega-3 there. Yeah, we got that. Cheers, everyone. And
cheers.
See you next week.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye, everyone.